Hey everybody, it is, what day is today? Tuesday, May the 6th, 2021, and I have a special guest today. I have Melanie Williams of Law in Motion. So welcome, Melanie.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, so Melanie, you and I have had discussions around the topic of things that can occur when realtors and their buyers are going into people's homes. And one of those things is one thing I often say to my clients is let's not talk about the property inside the property in terms of pricing or any details about offers or any of that other stuff. And I thought maybe you could give us some insight into that because some people, typically most people are okay with that. They're like, yeah, let's go outside. Let's talk about it outside. But you may have the odd person that maybe feels a little uncomfortable with that, maybe doesn't know what to think of that. So I thought it might be a good take to have somebody in the law profession give us some insight into that from a legal perspective.
Yeah, I'm definitely happy to weigh in. And thanks again for having me today. I appreciate the invite. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it's a real issue, right, of people putting up security cameras inside when they've opened their house up for a walkthrough. There is a huge risk to buyer clients that, this information could ultimately be used against them if it ever came to that. Now, the question of whether or not you're allowed to do it, I think that's sort of a gray area, right? Because
Hmm. Hmm.
I guess arguably the reason they put the cameras up is because they're concerned about the security of their home, possibly personal items that may be touched, damaged, stolen, who knows?
Well, sometimes too, I think it's just a listening ear, right? I mean, I've had somebody mention to me before that they recorded, open houses and things like that as well. So there's various reasons, right? I mean, we live in a society today where people have cameras up all the time for, to watch the nanny with the kids or, outside security, those kinds of things, right? So, yeah. And what about those scenarios where maybe somebody enters into a home and somebody's actually physically walking around following you with a camera? Not to say that that ever necessarily happens, but what would your thoughts be on something like that?
Okay, so just to kind of unpack the listening ear comment first, so there's a difference between audio recordings, visual recordings, and like some sort of combination of the two, right? If they're recording audio and they're not actively engaged in a conversation with the person who's on the other end of that audio, then there is no consent, right? Which technically recording someone else's conversation is illegal. So
Mm-hmm.
like having like audio listening devices set up that are just simply recording two people conversing, like it would be the same equivalent of me, taping a recording device under my boardroom table and letting, opposing counsel and their client have a conversation in there.
Now, would
So
that fall too with like baby monitors and stuff where people might have that on and they might be parked outside and they have a baby monitor that they can listen in on the dialogue? Like we are in somebody's home. So does that fall under the same sort of rules, do you think? Or what's your opinion on that?
so I think, like I said, all of this is very gray. Like it's all situationally based and it's hard
Yeah,
to say hard and fast, these are the rules or these are not, right? But
yeah.
like I said before, if you're actively listening to two people or multiple people having a conversation that you are not a party to the conversation,
Hmm.
then yes, that's a hard and fast no, you're not supposed to do that. Now, if you and I are conversing and we're
Hmm.
discussing whatever, we're shooting the breeze, and I decide to record our conversation, that's okay because
You've
I'm
consented.
consenting.
Yeah,
Exactly. So we
yeah.
have that one party consent, default, which means because I've consented, I'm allowed to record. Now, following someone with a camera and recording their every move or their every discussion, I think that also falls in the gray area because you're looking at to take a video recording, there is the question of whether the person who's being recorded has a reasonable expectation of privacy in that situation, right? You are
Hmm.
in someone else's home. So does the privacy, you know, expectation protect you in someone else's home, or is it simply, the areas of your own home or your private garage or something to that extent, right? Like where the line ends and how far you can go to say, you know what, stop, I'm not comfortable with this,
Hmm.
before you remove yourself from that situation is like, it's a whole different can of worms, right?
Yeah. So let's touch on. I know sometimes when showing homes to buyers, sometimes now because we do live in a world where people just have to pull out their camera,
Yeah.
hit record, and away we go. Right? They're recording something. Sometimes as an agent that may be showing a property, buyers take it upon themselves to start recording. Through the property, and as a real estate professional, I have to bring it to their attention that we don't have the consent of the owners to be recording their home, whether it be I'm the listing agent or the buyer's agent. It's an education process on that. So maybe you can just touch on a bit of privacy law or legislation, or your opinion on those kinds of things, and any guidance around that you might suggest to a prudent buyer that shouldn't be doing those things.
Yeah. So I think you walking into someone else's home and kind of popping out a camera and recording.
Not me personally. When you
No,
say
no, no.
you,
Like
you're talking
you
like a prospective buyer.
as prospective buyer. Exactly. So a buyer walking in
Innocently enough, doing it innocently enough, because this is the world we live in, right? People like pull out their phones and record, and they're not doing
of
it intentionally
course.
or maliciously, but just,
Yeah,
sorry,
just
go
making a
ahead.
record for later, right? So then they can, oh, this is something I really liked about the property, or this didn't work for me, whatever the case is, right?
Or
So
taking pictures. Sometimes they take pictures just so that they can reference, right? And I often say, there's great pictures on the MLS that the listing
exactly.
brokerage has taken. You can look through those. But go ahead. Sorry. Carry
No,
on.
that's okay. I think when you think about the reasonable expectation of privacy, if it's in my home and I haven't provided you or the, prospective buyer or whomever with consent to take those photos, then I think it's pretty clear that you can't do that, right? And
Hmm.
especially, I believe you guys in your profession, you have forms where the client signs saying, I consent to you taking these photos and posting them here and doing whatever, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if that doesn't extend to said potential buyer, some people will send, prior to the walkthrough, some kind of email or contact that says, I'd like to take photos. Is this okay with your client? Right. And
Hmm. Hmm.
just sort of laying those groundworks
Hmm.
would go a
Hmm.
long way in making sure that you don't violate some sort of law that you weren't even aware of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this has been great information, and thank you so much for joining us today. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. And Melanie, being the lawyer, will be able to try to answer any of those questions. And if it's something more related to my profession, then I will certainly try to answer those, and we'll stick within our own professions here.
Yeah.
But thanks again, Melanie. I appreciate you coming on today and taking the time. I know
Yeah.
you've got a busy
Anytime.
day today. All right. Thanks.